call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Town of Norton Zoning Board of Appeals. July 29, 2020. We are meeting remotely, by remote means, due to the COVID-19 crisis and the orders of Governor Baker for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts of March, and also the orders of the Board of Select Persons at the Town of Norton, that the public meetings shall continue to be held remotely for now. The orders have been extended, and we are still within the emergency period. We've provided notice of how the public can access the meeting, and we're doing our best to make sure that access is as wide as possible. We have just one hearing item on the agenda tonight. We have a couple of business items we'll get to later. The first item is the Chapter 40B comprehensive permit application relating to 253 Mansfield Ave. The applicant owner, 253 Reservoir LLC. This is our first opening meeting for this project. The applicant seeks to construct a 60-unit rental apartment building, including 15 affordable housing units at 253 Mansfield Ave. It's in a commercial zone, and I'll ask for the applicant to step in a second. But just to summarize for the record, Chapter 40B is a Massachusetts law that provides for what are called affordable housing developments, a streamlined process, streamlined at least insofar as it provides that the town's zoning board gets to hear most of the provisions of the application and make a decision ourselves rather than going to various departments in town. The exception being the Conservation Commission, which still has a role, and of course the Building Commissioner. I see Mr. Carmichael is here with us tonight. Building Commissioner has a say over certain items as well, and of course advises the board as well. With us is Judy Barrett, who is with Barrett Consulting, on board as the town's consultant for the 40B, this 40B project and one other, under the provisions of a state grant that Paul DiGiuseppe, our Director of Planning, got awarded for us. We appreciate her participation as well. And I see some residents, I think residents of the town in attendance. We do provide for questions and comments by abutters and interested residents in general. It's been the practice of the board to do that at each meeting for a 40B. 40Bs normally span over several meetings, so very little is going to be decided tonight. This is kind of an introduction to the project. But for anybody who wants to ask questions or provide brief comment, we'll try to give you an opportunity to do that later in this meeting. Just realize that there will be several more meetings on this development, and we'll provide, if we can, the opportunity to do that at subsequent meetings as well. Town Council is not present with us tonight. By the way, I understand that she is on break, but we have Judy with us to keep us straight. With that, this is a project. I'm just going to summarize very briefly. In a commercially zoned district, 60 rental units on 2.4 acres, and the applicant will of course correct anything that I get wrong in the summary. 15 units will be affordable, and that means rented to households earning lower or equal to 80% of the area median income rate as set by the federal government, I believe. And that's what the Affordable Housing Chapter 40B Act in Massachusetts requires, that a quarter of the units prepared under a project like this go to that certain income bracket. 24 one-bedroom units are planned, with 6 of those affordable, 27 two-bedroom units with 7 affordable, and 9 3-bedroom units, with 2 affordable, 2 of the 9 being designated as affordable. Those are somewhat subject to change, but that's what the applicant has proposed. And I understand that the applicant presented or might have updated certain things just this week. We got a 25-page submission. Looks like what we have in the notebooks, but I'll ask the applicant to tell us how it differs. And one question I'll have for Paul and generally is interested parties, we should provide a way for interested parties, in other words, town residents, to be able to gain access to the materials that the applicant submits. And we can talk about that later. Right now, could I ask everybody in attendance at this Zoom meeting to mute their microphones, turn off your microphones, because we're picking up, I'm sorry, for the time being anyway, because we're picking up some background noise from someone, either conversation or radio or television. And you can unmute when you want to talk. Also, if you want to raise your hand, of course, if you have the camera enabled, you can wave, and hopefully one of us will see you. The applicant has taken certain steps already because the town of Norton is currently below the 10% affordable housing stock floor that Chapter 40B establishes. So the applicant is attempting to proceed under the Chapter 40B regime. The applicant has done certain things already, including meeting with some town departments as early as, I think, February, March of this year, and submitting plans and going to the state to get their project eligibility letter, which was granted, I think, in May. The applicant requests of the town a number of waivers. I won't go through all those. They're in the application and they're subject to change as well. But that's normally what the zoning board zeroes in on as we go through this process. We look at those specific applications and make a decision later on toward the end of the process whether those conditions or those otherwise rules that the town would impose can be waived. And sometimes we do them one by one. If there's an issue or a problem that comes up with one, we can take that up as a single issue during the process. But at this point, we're really here at an introductory phase. The site is to the left of what I'll describe affectionately as Alberto's. When one is on Route 140, facing Alberto's Restaurant and Pub, this is immediately to the left of Alberto's. It is a strip of land that extends from 140 down to the reservoir. And again, this is all depicted in the materials that the applicant submitted. With that, can I ask the applicant to step in, and somebody can announce who will be leading the presentation, and you're welcome to introduce the other members of the team. I see a lot of names and faces that I don't recognize, so I assume that they are part of the applicant's team. With that, who's going to speak?
Hello, Chairman Knoll. This is Lynn Sweet from LDS Consulting Group. For the record, we're in Newton, Massachusetts.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for that great introduction. That means a few less things that I have to talk about in the project since you've already noted those. Since this is our first hearing, we have prepared a slideshow. That's the 25-page submission that you saw yesterday. And after I introduce our team, it's gone. I was going to share the screen. Okay, that's back now. So once I'm going to introduce our team, let Anthony, who is the developer, speak a little bit about his experience, and then I'll bring the PowerPoint presentation up.
The names on the screen, sorry to interrupt, the names on the screen may be a bit different than the actual participants' names, so if you can try to introduce not only the person's real name, but I see Anthony. Okay, I can recognize Anthony. And Anthony's last name is?
Rizzuti.
Okay, that is one of the
From my office, just to let you know who's here, Kira Spotty Smith is from my office, LDS Consulting Group.
Very good.
Mark Joyce is our architect. Jim Burke is our civil engineer. And Jeffrey Dirk is our traffic engineer. Paul Haverty is our 40B attorney. So we've probably taken up about half the screen with our team.
Yeah.
And
It's okay.
everyone on our team has 30 or more years of experience working in real estate development in their respective fields, as well as specifically in multifamily housing and 40B. So I'm just going to turn it over to Anthony for a couple minutes to talk a little bit about his background, the site, and then he'll turn it back to me, and I'll bring our presentation up if that's
Great.
okay with everyone.
Great, thank you very much. I would ask again, if you do have the visuals, to post them on the screen as you're talking about them to the extent you're able. It's not a perfect system, but we'll try to, show what you're talking about on the screen as you're talking about it. And also try to keep your voice up. And members of the board, if you can't hear or see something, just speak up as best you can to let the speaker know to lean into the microphone or whatever. Lynn, you were a little muffled. I don't know where the microphone is on your system, but I could hear you, but a little bit muffled. And go ahead, Anthony.
I will bring my screen closer, and I did just put the PowerPoint presentation up. I want to make sure people can see that.
Thank you. And Mr. Rasuti?
So that wasn't the worst attempt at my last name that you made, but it's Rosito, but no problem, no worries. My name is Anthony Rosito. I am the developer on the project. The property has been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather bought it when it was actually a restaurant. I don't know if anybody remembers that back in the late 70s, early 80s, but it was a restaurant that he tried to run unsuccessfully, and then built this building with my father. Now it's my brother and myself who own it. So we've been there for over 30 years. We are 3rd generation developers. Both my parents and grandparents are from Italy, came here and just started building things, and here we are a few generations later still building. We mainly do residential, and over the last 5 to 10 years have shifted mainly to multifamily residential. Basically what you see here, a garage on the 1st floor and 3 levels of living. Most of our stuff has been urban infill in and around the city of Boston, with some stuff in the suburbs. We own and manage, we build, own, and manage all of our own properties. We actually dig our own foundations. It's our own excavation company. So we're there from the beginning to the end to management. That's our long-term goal. Just keep chipping away at it every year. That's about it on us. Any questions?
I have an initial question. What are you also Corvo, or is Corvo a different participant?
So Corvo Properties so actually it's a great question. Corvo Properties is the company that ends up managing these buildings when they're done. Corvo Construction is a company that actually GCs and builds it so that we can fill it and manage it.
Is that your company as well, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Myself and my brother. My father isn't as active anymore as he once was, but he is involved.
I just saw the different company names mentioned. I was just trying to get the players straight. Thank you.
Of course. Mr. Chairman.
Can I ask a quick question?
Of course, yes, Mr. Wren.
Hey, did you say you own the current building that's there now? Is that what I heard?
Yes.
You do? Okay. That's what the CrossFit was and the...
Exactly. We also owned another business in Norton a while back. We owned the Touches Car Wash on Route 123. Sold that over probably 5 or 6 years ago. So we've been around the town for a long time. My family, my cousins have a restaurant in town. So we've been around Norton my whole life.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So turning to the PowerPoint presentation, this is a picture of what we're proposing for the outside of the building, and we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. Let's see if my clicker is going to work here. So I have a very long presentation. I'm not going to speak to every slide. So hopefully we'll get through this before midnight or so. We talked about the development team, and Mr. Knoll mentioned where we are in the process. This is kind of a recap. You probably heard this when Judy went through your 40B training. We did have 2 really valuable meetings with the town, one back in January, and we thank Paul for coordinating those meetings. We did meet with department heads again after we got our project eligibility letter in May. We met with them in June and again got some really valuable feedback and changed our plans based on that feedback. And we feel that the permitting process always makes a project better, getting input from the department heads and from the various boards. It's a collaborative process, and hopefully at the end of the day, we can provide a development plan that everyone is satisfied with. So we got our site eligibility letter in May, and we're opening the hearing tonight under 40B. Once the hearings are opened, we have hearings for 180 days, hopefully making progress, and then close the hearing, make it, and have a decision. Along with the ZBA hearings, we are also in front of the Conservation Commission, and we had our first hearing there on Monday night because there are wetlands in the rear of the property, and the property is subject to the local stormwater bylaw. So we have had that hearing continued until September 14th, so we can have some peer review done on that. What we're coming and asking you to do essentially, and this is in our application, is to, at the end of the hearing process, when you make your decision, make a finding of fact. That's the legal part of this. We believe that our project complies with Chapter 40B requirements and the statute, and we've listed the reasons as to how our application does comply with the statute, that the town has less than 10% of its housing stock is affordable, that our client is a limited dividend organization, that they have site control, they have the project eligibility letter that was issued in May, and that we have provided to you a completed application. As Mr. Knoll mentioned, the site is probably best known for the landmark next door, which is Alberto's. To the rear of the site is the Norton Reservoir. Across the street is our single-family homes. We're kind of smack dab in between Great Woods and the TPC, the golf course there. So it's kind of a mixed-use location in a sense that makes it the best location for a multifamily housing building. We have services, retail, all within a mile's drive, including schools, element, and the highway. So everything is close by to kind of meet the people who live there, their everyday life needs. As far as the development overview, again, Mr. Knoll gave an overview of that it's a 60-unit project. Essentially, it is a 4-story building. The first floor is parking, and the upper 3 floors are residential. We think that this is a pretty good project because it will comply with the stormwater standards. We are not asking for any dimensional waivers. We understand from DOT that they have no issues with us accessing 140. And the site will also put the town over 10%, or at least keep it over 10% when the 2020 census comes around. Things of note, I think one thing that's really important, we have a large recreation space that you'll see in the rear of the property, but we've also provided each unit will have a balcony so that unit owners will also have their own private recreational space, if you will, or outdoor space. Sometimes that's hard to find in an urban setting. We have provided a lot of parking, both interior and exterior. The building will be visitable. That means that because it has elevators, both the interior amenities, exterior amenities will be handicapped accessible. And, at the end of the day, we believe this project will also be revenue positive to the community. I think everyone knows right now we're on the precipice of an even bigger housing crisis than we had before COVID-19. There's incredible fear about what's going to happen to for the need for affordable housing once the eviction moratorium is lifted. If it's lifted in October, the numbers are in the tens of thousands of parties that are not able to meet the rent obligation. So the need for affordable housing has never been greater, and unfortunately is going to continue. Particularly in Norton, 37% of renters, as of the last ACS, are rent burdened, meaning they're paying more than 30% of their income towards rent. Other things about worth mentioning is that the units will be affordable in perpetuity. Therefore, once they're on the SHI, once they're created, that affordability is not going to go away. We will be very happy to ask DHCD for a local preference when the time is right, and the property will be affirmatively fair marketed for the affordable units, and all of the units will be eligible to be counted on the town's SHI.
Ms. Sweet, can I interrupt for 1 second? Go back to that slide again with the rent.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right in the middle, the net rents are listed there for the 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. What is a net rent? I didn't get that in the paper.
So,
I looked at that as well.
Really good question. So every year HUD sets rents based on income levels, and you're put into a particular HUD market area. Net rent means that rent has to include not only the rent for the unit, but all of the utilities such as water and sewer, heat and hot water, electricity. So if the developer decides to separately meter any of those things, he has to give a utility allowance, therefore back it out. So that is probably the wrong term. In fact, that is what the gross rent is going to be.
So net rent is the rent that
Gross
will
rent,
be
yeah.
paid as long as the ratios and figures stay at what they are right now. If we were to
Right,
build tomorrow. Okay. Thank you.
Honestly, let me take a look at it and make sure. Let me clarify that afterwards to see whether I did use net or gross in there.
No, it's listed in the papers
Apologize.
as well. I just didn't understand the terminology. And
Yeah, net is net of utilities, gross is the full, but I want to make sure that I'm giving you actual net of utilities
Okay.
in this number. And if my numbers are correct, those net rents are what the tenant's actually paying.
And Judy Barrett, I see, is nodding affirmatively. Judy,
Yeah.
jump in. Judy, if you have any questions as well, Judy, as we're going along, just as you know the other board members are doing, just raise your hand and elbow in. Thank you. And I should have introduced also at the beginning. I'm Tom Noel. I'm the chair of the board for some reason. Jim Tenore is a member. David Wren is the third voting member. We are a 3-member board with 1 alternate. The alternate is Mr. Booley, Alan Booley. Did I finally get it right, guys? And the voting members we like to call the regular members. I don't know what that means, but we're the regular members. Mr. Booley is an alternate. When it comes time to a vote, 3 members will vote, dependent on who has attended all the meetings and things of that sort. But in the meantime, Mr. Booley, or the alternate, is fully a part of the board and asks questions and engages in discussion as well. Just wanted to introduce people to the team as well as to anybody else. And I apologize for not doing that. Go ahead, Lynn.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, sorry. And I think this might be directed more at Judy. On the previous slide, 70%, if you go back to the previous slide, is for local preference. Is that typical?
That's all that we're allowed to ask for from DHCD. They will allow you up to 70% of a local preference, meaning in their 4 categories, people that live in town, work in town, have children in town, and I think I don't want to get the 4th one wrong, but the general gist of it is it's very prescribed by the state And so after after a comprehensive permit issues, typically the developer works with the municipality puts together a letter that says, here's the reasons why we should have a local preference. And when you go to get ready to do your marketing, the state or the subsidizing agency will say whether or not they grant it to you. Most of the time they do.
And is that 70% of total units or of the affordables?
70% of the affordable units. Yeah, the lottery is only done on the affordable units.
And Judy, jump in if we're getting this wrong.
No, I just wanted to clarify. There are 4 categories of people who are eligible. They are current residents of your community. There's no durational restriction that can be applied. People who work for the town, people who work for other businesses in Norton, or people who have children attending your schools but live out of town.
Okay.
The example being like the METCO program. And it's up to the town. It's not your problem, fortunately, as a ZBA, but if the town wants the local preference, as Lynn said, it's really the burden's on the town to sort of explain why you want it and why you need it. It's not an automatic grant, although I agree with Lynn, for the most part, if you ask for it, you typically will get it.
Okay, so here up to 70% of the 15 units, so we're talking not 9 units or so, the town could come forward and say, well, gee, those should go to local people, quote unquote. Is that it?
It's preference, it's not guaranteed.
Okay, thank you.
And it is a one-time, just also to clarify that, it's one-time test. The first time the units are let as part of the lottery, there's a local preference, but when they're re-let, there is not a preference. It's basically taken off a waiting list or first come, first serve.
Nice of 40B to have all these rules and sub-rules. We won't become expert at them because some of you are, Judy and you probably are already. Good question, Jim. Any other questions right now, as long as we're at that stage from the board members? Nope. Go right ahead.
Chair, it's Paul. Do you mind if I ask Lynn for a clarification?
Of course.
Okay, Lynn, hi. Did I hear you correctly when you mentioned about when you were talking about the waivers and the dimensional requirements? Did you say you're not asking for any waivers for dimensional requirements?
I believe for the setbacks, we're not asking for any waivers on those part of the dimensional requirements.
Yeah, because but in your application, it did ask for height and a very, a increase of 1 story to 4 stories and a very small increase to your building area.
Yeah, it's the setbacks.
Yeah, right. Okay, nothing on the setback.
So the building footprint. Yeah.
Right. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. So green features, and Jim and Mark are probably going to go into this a little bit more. I think one of the items we're really proud of, and certainly came out of the early discussions we had with the town, was that right now the entire site is paved all the way to the riverbank. So under this new plan, we are hoping to reduce the impervious area by 25%. Another item that's really important is we are going to introduce the concept of stormwater management, which the site currently does not have. And a lot of these other features are really pretty standard for most new buildings today, and we will be hitting all of those. We will be having electric car charging stations and bicycles to try and encourage alternative modes of transportation and energy savings, and clean air over time. And I believe I am up to Mark at this point. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark Joyce, our architect. And he can tell me when he wants me to click.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Joyce, you're the architect?
He was on. Do you need to unmute, maybe?
Let me ask a question. Mr. Joyce can unmute in the meantime. Lynn, we have we have a few letters that were issued by the town back in March, or there's an exchange of letters. There's one from Conservation from Ms. Carlino. And then I saw you responded a few weeks later, a few days later, to the state saying, yes, we're going to address these things. I'm talking about a letter of March 10, 2020 from Ms. Carlino. Have some
Yes.
of these things been addressed, and are they being addressed? You said you were before Conservation Monday night.
Yes.
What's that process? Just very briefly.
So when we get to Jim's part in the slide, we will definitely talk more about the items that we've addressed. One of them is to take out of the rear of the property. And so there are state regulations, and then there's a local stormwater management bylaw. We put in for a blanket waiver on the stormwater management bylaw, and after Monday nights, we took a look and we realized that we actually probably can meet all of the requirements under the stormwater bylaw. So we're showing you a plan tonight with the engineering that's in place today, but we will be making a small adjustment to the plan, and I'm gonna leave that, if you don't mind me kind of holding that question until we get to Jim. I think he's right after the architect, and if I saw that thanks, Jim. Mark, did you get your audio working?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's okay. That's fine.
Okay, so-
We'll come back to that after. I just had
Thank you. I know I'm not doing it justice in that Jim can.
That's fine. Mr. Joyce, are you next?
Sure. I can jump in. So a lot of thunder has been stolen, but I'll touch on a few things that may have not been discussed. Basically, the intent of the project is to utilize the existing footprint of building and its superstructure. As we know, the existing building is a single-story structural steel framed commercial building. We do have to do further evaluation on the existing structure, but the intent of the construction would be to supplement the existing roof for the loading of the subsequent floors on top of the existing building. Would basically create sort of a true podium, as sort of the terminology in the industry is, and we would then switch to wood frame construction for 3 floors. The ground level is primarily for parking. It would be an enclosed parking structure. We would heat it. We wouldn't air condition the space, but we would heat the space. There's vertical circulation as required by building code. There's an elevator, 2 stairs, and then essentially in the floor plan here is sort of the shorter dog leg of the L, or the shorter leg of the L, is mainly reserved for amenity spaces for the residents. Kind of the yellowish tone area is all the lobby spaces, complete with sort of concierge or at least a management area. Some of the, so I guess it's purple gray kind of spaces are community spaces, and we broke them into sort of 2 areas. One that might be sort of a conference center, community space, sort of, I don't want to call it a party room, but a function room, and then a secondary room that might be like a media room or something like that. It's important to note we also have a fitness center, which is kind of in the center of the space. A pretty sizable, in the green tone, pretty sizable mail room, and also resident storage on this floor. As Lynn had mentioned before, we looked at this property and the site, trying to take advantage of some of the views to the reservoir. So the lobby space basically goes from front to back. So as you enter the building, you would catch a view straight through to the reservoir out the back. And we're going to design sort of a stone patio space that would then cascade down a set of steps to a lawn area. We haven't developed sort of the lawn area at this point. We're keeping it pretty passive because of the fire department requirements for access around the building. But as Lynn had mentioned, we're substantially increasing the amount of green space over what is existing today. The interior spaces are going to definitely be developed as we move through the process. Right now, like I
Mr.
said,
Joyce?
Yes, sir.
Just one preliminary. What's the existing footprint? Is it exactly this outline?
So if you go back to the ground level, yes, the footprint of the building is that outline. It's 27,800 square feet.
Okay.
Okay.
There was some question raised by the town as to structural integrity of putting a 3-story building on top of it. I trust that you've looked at that. It may be something you want to take an independent look at.
Oh, of course. We're in the process of investigating the existing building. With COVID, it's been a little difficult getting into the building and doing a substantial survey. But we have to look at the foundations. We have to look at the existing steel, how it's framed, and of course, we know we need to supplement the existing structure with new structure. The load dynamics are completely different from what the existing building is today.
Okay, thank you.
Moving up through the building, I don't think we have to really go through all the floor plans, but because each floor plan is typical and is the same, as was mentioned, it's a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Also clustered around a central hallway network. You've got your elevator, you've got your upper level lobbies, stairs, and so on. As Lynn had mentioned earlier, each unit does have a balcony, and each level has resident storage. There's plenty of storage in this building. Utilizing the existing building footprint has sort of increased the unit square footages. We are in compliance. In fact, we exceed sort of the 40B regulation. So, sort of to that point, a 3-bedroom unit is 1,200 square feet or north. 2-bedroom unit is 900 square feet or again larger than that. 1-bedroom unit is 700 square feet or north of that. As I said, each unit has balconies. Each unit we've got to further develop it, but each unit will have an HVAC system and a Navion water heating system, which is basically super efficient. Each unit will have an in-unit laundry. I'll speak briefly about the sort of the material. On the next slide, Lynn, please. Unless there's questions on the we're trying to stay within sort of a residential vernacular. We're going to be picking from material that we're all familiar with. We're looking at brick veneer, looking at clapboard siding, and we're looking at asphalt shingling. The detailing and sort of the cues that we're going to draw off of are residential in nature, with pitched roofs and double hung windows and so on. The materials are all coming from sustainable sources. They are maintenance free in terms of the material. What else can I tell you? Like I say, it's going to. This was our sort of first pass at the facade design. Long way to go. And as we determine, like I say, the landing of the upper levels on the existing building, that will develop further. Any questions?
Questions from the board or Judy? This is all preliminary, of course.
Yeah,
Can I just add one quick thing, which kind of headed off at the pass? The interior, all the market rate units and affordable units will be the same. There won't be any distinction on the outside or the interiors of the buildings between the affordable units and the market rate units.
And thank you. Members had questions?
Chris Carmichael, Building Commissioner.
Yes, go ahead.
So I just wanted to clarify, I don't have a problem with the structural because they're going to be putting steel down through the existing floor. My concern is whether or not the existing single white CMU will survive the actual construction and the vibration. It's 30+ years old. But I will be dealing with that at time of building permit. I just noted it for your information. But why we brought it up, are you going to put the brick veneer over that? Is that going to be grouted and rebarred? Mark, do you have that info?
I don't have that specific answer. Not having investigated the building to, a high level. At the end of the day, you very well may be right. Yeah, the existing masonry may not be salvageable. We may just be salvaging the superstructure. If, and I don't believe that this is the case, if that existing masonry wall is bearing, it's going to become non-bearing at the end of the day. We're not going to use that exterior wall for anything other than exterior envelope.
Yeah, again, I'm just concerned about all the vibration during construction and whether or not it's actually viable at the end of the day. But again, we can address that as we proceed. So as long as we're try to...
Absolutely.
And then another thing I picked up during your presentation is your parking spaces, both internal and external. You're looking at 8.6 and the zone requirement at 9 by 19. So would you be looking for?
Well, I didn't catch that.
So
Somebody's
these are 9 by 19 in the town. It's a zoning requirement. And your dimensional says it's 8.6. So do you ask for a variance or? That should be included.
Variance.
Very.
As to parking spaces, I think is what we're
With the parking space, it should be 9 feet.
I guess to answer the question, we'd be looking for some variance really for the size of the parking space.
If we wanted to come up later on, I think it should be part of this permit, that's all.
Yep. Okay.
Yep, we have to talk about parking too, because I have some questions about this in the middle. I wasn't able to get the numbers.
But I have to say that overall,
We'll do that going forward.
the podium style and
Somebody has some background noise. Could you be real careful about that? Thanks.
I just wanted to say, Mr. Chairman, that the podium style building and the reduced parking, the parking inside the building and reducing the outside impervious areas of great design. We deal with a couple of these issues during construction.
Chris, I'm sorry. I could not make you out. You're muffled. Could you get closer to your mic or source?
Sure. A lot of the issues that were brought up, I'll deal with during construction. I just want to let you know.
Yeah, thank you. I heard that. Any other questions, Jim?
Yeah, I got one. If that masonry footprint is not viable,
I use this computer for Zoom.
will you guys be looking to change
I
the
believe-
footprint? Are you keeping this footprint no matter
I
what?
got audio off the machine.
Sorry, I got to ask people to mute your mics if you are not recognized. I'm not trying to be rude. Somebody keeps bleeding through, and I could not hear Mr. Tenore. Jim, try again.
Yeah, so the question I had is this footprint going to change at all, given the fact that masonry structure is not viable?
I'm sorry, Bill. Whoever is Bill on the Zoom call, could you please, Bill, mute your mic?
Compensating the system.
That would. I'll answer the question. I did catch it.
I didn't catch the question, so please hold on. Paul, are you able to mute the microphones remotely?
No, I got a choice. Name the system.
Paul?
Go to audio one more time. Go to audio.
Bill is still bleeding audio, but if Bill could remain silent, and Jim, one more time, and I'm sorry, Jim.
No, don't worry. So I was just asking, if Chris brought up a point that I questioned. So if the masonry walls are no longer viable and you're not actually using the walls, you're going to put up steel. You guys aren't going to change your footprint, correct? You're going to stay within the same footprint, correct?
That's absolutely correct. We're not going to go out beyond the existing foundation wall. If anything, you know, if the idea of saving the building at the end of the day is not viable, we'll structure the building inside of the existing footprint. We have no intention of, you know, altering any of the setbacks.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. Anybody else, other members at this time? Nope. Ms. Sweet, what is next in the presentation? We're getting through, and again, these are preliminaries, but it's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. We are finally up to the site plan. Maybe we should have started with that. I have a couple of pages that outline some of the changes that we made from when we submitted our project eligibility letter.
Great.
To what the plan looks like today. And again, a lot of that came from discussions with the municipality. And I don't want to steal Jim Burke's thunder, so I'm going to move to the plan that shows is there today. And if he misses something, I'll follow up when he's done. How's that sound?
Sure. Thank you.
Jim, you have to unmute.
Am I on?
You are.
Now, yep. Hi, Mr. Burke.
You can hear me okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Again, my name is Jim Burke. I am the registered professional civil engineer on the project. I've done several jobs in the past with Anthony, so he and I have a long history of working together. And actually, we've worked on this lot for him in the past as well. Just to orientate everybody, as I will be speaking north, south, east, west. North, you'll be the top of the page heading into Mansfield. West will be across 140. South, of course, is one of my favorites, Alberto's. And to the east, we'll be talking about the reservoir. You have an existing 85,000 square foot lot. I think you mentioned earlier that it was 2.4. It's actually just under 2, so 1.95 acres. The topography of the lot goes from pretty much just runs from west to east, right to the reservoir. The high point is Route 140 at an elevation of 116. Goes to a stone retaining wall in the back of the property. To probably top of that wall is 109, 110. And the bottom of that wall is 103, which is essentially floodplain and BVW. The reason for our filing with conservation. The entire site is paved. Very little stormwater controls on the property right now. But it has existing water supply, overhead electric, a significant gas supply for the building as well. And also there's a connection to public sewer. Lynn, can we go to the next page? So this is the layout sheet, and what basically we're showing is how the building of the existing footprint sits on the lot, how the underground parking blends in with, under garage parking blends in with the surface parking. And that's correct. We are asking for 9 by 18 spaces with 24-foot aisles, which is fairly typical for parking throughout Massachusetts. So I don't think asking for the waiver will contribute any less of maneuverability for the site. Let's see, as far as the layout goes, can we go to the next slide, Lynn? So this, it looks like the meats and potatoes of the development. Again, we'll be improving the water, fire protection. We'll be putting an oil water separator in for the underground garage, connecting that to the public sewer. The real improvement for this site is the stormwater and the reduction in impervious area. We're reducing the impervious by over 11,000 square feet, the majority of which is in the back along the reservoir.
Yep. Mr. Burke, I know one of the initial concerns of conservation was no untouched areas in back of the building, and I guess that's changed since the original March submission. You now have open space there.
Correct.
Don't you have a challenge here with fire equipment getting around? And on the north side, is that a roadway on the north side? I mean, an access?
That exists today, as a matter of fact. Originally, when we first proposed this development, we took that road out. And actually, we had probably 17,000 square feet of new impervious area. But after discussions with the fire department, they had concerns about getting to the rear. So we basically left that 10-foot roadway on the north side to provide access around the building. We also extend the pavement along the edges to the rear with a geogrid material, which allows grass to grow through it and still allows vehicles, H20 loading, to traverse across the lawn. As far as, we have been working with the fire department with this particular layout. As you can see, there's a fire lane. It's kind of right in the south side of the property, right in the elbow of the building. We had some parking in there early, but to have access to get to the rear, we had to take some of that parking out. So as far as accessibility for the fire trucks, and the traffic engineer, Mr. Dirk, he's done some flow paths for the fire, for emergency vehicles to access, as well as refuse trucks to access the site. The maneuverability of the site is there.
Okay, thank you. One final question, and again, I don't mean to get pinned down on any one topic. Well, I can't. I'm pointing at my screen. You can't see where I'm pointing. To the right, upper right-hand corner of the structure. What is? Yes. What is that rectangular area there in dotted line exactly?
That actually is the underground stormwater recharge system.
Okay.
So that right now meets the stormwater meets the Massachusetts standards. Does not meet the local bylaw standards. However, since we met with conservation Monday night, I took a quick look at it and let the lead fly, and we can comply with the local bylaw without too much increasing that detention area recharge system, maybe by 50%, extends the length of the building to where that manhole exists. It's actually a much better system after hearing the conservation concerns. So
I just didn't know if that rectangle was a structure of some sort. It's not above ground, though. It's
no, all underground. We did a soil test. We cut the pavement and punched a hole through there. And I was surprised and pleased to see that we had 9 feet of sand, a really coarse, nice sand that will accept a lot of stormwater. We have about 58,000 square feet of impervious area, which is, like I said earlier, a reduction in 11,000 of impervious area. But we can recharge what the Norton stormwater bylaw requires in the back and detain all storm events, the 2, the 10, the 25, and 100 as required. So as I look at what's there now and what we're proposing, it's a significant improvement from a stormwater control standpoint and environmental protection for the Norton Reservoir. You're welcome. And I'd say, we're maintaining grades. There's a little bit of fill coming into the back to get a bit of cover over the top of that stormwater system, but we're pretty much maintaining grade as the site sits, and it fell together pretty good. But if you have any further questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
if it's okay, I'm just gonna add a couple more things about the site plan. We have, so this, fire access is really, it's gonna be gated. It's only for fire trucks, and it's kind of, they drive over the curb and drive behind. We have put a waiting area for children for school buses. We have created, walkways throughout so that if they need to cross the drive and get to that waiting area, they can. We have enclosed dumpsters. We have snow windrows, I guess is what they're called, highlighted here in red. We do have a handicap parking inside and out. We did add, again, at the request of the fire department, and it's shown on Mark's plan, we added a second, an exit from the parking garage to this side of the building. The fire department asked for that.
And a hydrant.
And there's a hydrant, except I never know what the hydrant is. Where's the hydrant?
Pretty much right in the middle of that large island, out front.
Okay. Oh, right here?
Yep.
Did you say that the lane around the building is going to be reserved and gated just for emergency? And where does that start?
This one. This is like if there's a fire, they come right here and shoot behind the building. So that's specifically for emergency only. That's not it's not resident.
But is that? Did you say gated?
No.
There most likely will be a gate that the fire department has control over. Whatever the fire department tells us they want. Typically, when you have something like this, you do.
But that's access to 140 there. That's 140 straight in.
It'll still be curved. It'll be curved, but the trucks. It's a Cape Cod berm, the Mass Highway Cape Cod berm out there right now. So we're looking to match that, but it's certainly easily traversed by an emergency vehicle.
Okay. Thank you. Go right ahead.
Let's see. All right, so I think at this point, if there are no questions on the site layout, I'm going to turn it over to Jeffrey Dirk from Vanessa and Associates, our traffic engineer.
Thank you. And there's
been waiting patiently.
There's an extensive traffic report in the packet of materials. I haven't broken into that yet. There are some summary points listed as well. I guess I'd ask to keep to the summary points at this point, but traffic in that section I know was raised by the town as an early concern because of the location. So let's look at this from 30,000 feet rather than close to the road. Pardon the pun. But go ahead, Mr. Dirk, is it?
Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much. For the record, my name is Jeffrey Dirk. I'm a partner with Vanessa Associates, and as Lynn had mentioned, I'm the traffic engineer for the project. And I will do a very high-level overview. Definitely get a nice stiff cup of coffee before you delve into the traffic study. And this is a relatively short study, so not owing to the lack of depth that we went into, but just really because the project itself, and we'll go through this, is not a significant generator of traffic. And one of the things I want to start with, I think since we just finished with the site plan, is just to talk about the Mass DOT process with respect to the project. So of course, as you know, we're on a state highway, so we do, in addition to the approvals the board will be issuing, we do require a state highway access permit from Mass DOT, and we have been in consultation with them. They raised some of the same questions that you have, Mr. Chairman, and I think it really focuses on three areas that they're primarily concerned with. They will issue an access permit for the project, so really what we're down to with Mass DOT is making sure the town's comfortable with the project, but then it's really the design details on the access points. And those design details are really three things. The first was what the chair was mentioning, which is that 10-foot access around the building. Mass DOT would like to just understand how that's going to function and more specifics on the design. And the design being more how it's going to interface with the state highway. So that was the first question. The second question, and it really gets to what Jim had mentioned, is their drainage. And the nice thing about this site, as Jim mentioned, was that it slopes down towards the reservoir. Mass DOT's primary concern is don't drain into the state highway, period.
Huh.
So the site lends itself to taking care of that.
They don't care about reservoirs, huh?
With appropriate stormwater collection and treatment, and I think that's something the Conservation Commission will be looking at. But yeah, they don't want any stormwater on their state highway. And the last thing is on the access to the site itself. The driveway, as they see it, they want it as narrow as possible. So the key things for them are make sure you can get your emergency vehicles in, make sure that you can get service vehicles in. But aside from that, we want to see it as narrow as possible. And narrowness being, the driveway should be 24 feet in width. And then the other part of the driveway is, of course, the large radii that you see coming in and out of the site. They want that throat to be as narrow as possible because it's a better definition of where the driveway is. But if you're a bicyclist, just as an example, driving by the site, when you've got wide open curb cuts, that exposure you have to a vehicle coming out of the site is much greater. So if you narrow the driveway out, you limit that exposure. So we'll be looking on all of those, but the primary thing is make sure an emergency vehicle can get in and out of the site efficiently. So the driveway's been designed to do that, and to the extent that we can narrow it up, we will certainly do that. I do see what you mean.
Yeah, Jim?
Just on that entrance, is that the current entrance now? As it is with that CrossFit building is now? Like, is that the current, or are you guys modifying it?
It's the location of the existing southern access, and we will be modifying it slightly. But you do bring up a good point. One of the things when you do, not getting in the weeds of the traffic study, we do know there was Serpent had done a corridor study for Route 140, made several recommendations, and one of the primary recommendations, you see that as a part of the site plan, is to minimize the number of driveways along this corridor. This site doesn't need any more than one driveway. And so we are getting rid of the northern driveway. And then we do have that emergency access, but it's only for emergency vehicles, so that really doesn't count. So what you do see is us reducing the number of curb cuts along Route 140, which is one of the primary goals that Serpent had outlined in their corridor study. So that is a benefit.
Can I just follow up? And I apologize just while it's on my head. I think a little while ago we were told that there was going to be another access to that garage, and that was going to head out to where the fire department lane was. Is that going to be somehow controlled so there isn't people going out that fire lane going out to 140? Obviously coming in there would be a curb.
For pedestrians, right?
Yeah, no, for like people in the garage. There's gonna be a secondary garage access to exit. I got that wrong?
Yeah, there's only one entrance in and out of the garage. One of the things we've changed from the original plans is that that is coming in and out through here. This has all been closed off. There's no back entrance out the back.
Jim, what I think was mentioned was an emergency door for individuals to get out.
Oh, there's a door. Yeah, there's a door on this side of the building.
No, Jim, right.
That's this. This is the door. They wanted a fire door out of the garage.
No, Jim's right. There was an egress out the back of the garage in the original plan, which has since been closed. You're right, Mr. Tarn.
Okay.
But that the emergency access around the building has to be secured. Mass DOT will require that anyway. So there will be at 140 there will be a gating or something similar. They absolutely do not want to look like something that somebody could accidentally view as a driveway,
right?
And potentially stop and try to turn in there. So one of the things that they will require is that it be designed in such a way that it doesn't look anything like a driveway to a motorist. So your emergency services people will know it's there and know that that's an option. But if you're driving down 140, you will not view that as a driveway. They do not want someone to partially start to make a turn to go in there and then stop on 140. So we'll be working on that with the state, but it will be gated and designed in a way that it won't appear to an average motorist that this is a way to get into the site.
I'm sure there are things that can be created for that. I'd like to see them visually, what that looks like, because, I mean, the idea of a gate there or a fence is, I can't envision. Jim, I'm sorry, did I step on you?
It would certainly be out of character, Mr. Chairman, to have something like that there. So, we'll find out what's going to be acceptable to Mass DOT. I would say as well, whatever the gating device is, or whatever it happens to be, will not be located in the state highway layout, so it will be within the site. Mass DOT wants nothing to do with ownership or maintenance, so it will be in the site.
Okay. Jim, did I step on you again?
No, you were good. I just apologize. I thought when we were going through that, I thought I heard a secondary garage access, and but I guess it was a door, so I'm clear. Thank you.
Okay. Any other member questions at this point? I have one if nobody else speaks up.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'll ask a quick question maybe.
Of course.
So I'm just curious, so you access to the main southern entrance, and then you come, I guess there's like a recreational area there. Is that all is that fenced in? I think it's 91 by 13 feet, I believe.
Here?
What are you looking at, David?
Yeah, right there. Yes, so you come into the main parking lot, and then to the side of the building, there's a recreational area.
Correct. No, it is not fenced in. You know, it's sort of early on. We were talking about a bocce court. Fire department does want access around that southern side of the building, so whatever we would put there would be accessible.
Okay, that's what I guess I was kind of getting at. Because when I look at the pictures, it looks like there's trees there and stuff, and I couldn't figure out how they would get around that.
So we will have a landscape plan by next Friday. We apologize for that. So maybe some of the outdoor space will be a little clearer once we have a complete landscape plan for you.
Sure.
But the intention is that from where the no parking area is back here is going to be clear for emergency vehicle access. It'd be another, again, geogrid to keep to our green theme. But I don't know that we're going to be putting a bocce court or anything like that in there.
Right. And in the back
Maybe
of the
pickleball,
building.
no, I'm just kidding.
So then in the back of the building, where the wastewater drain system areas and so on, is that all grass or?
We will know that next Friday when we get our landscape plans.
There you go.
The intention, again, is that it be passive recreation. We want people to be able to enjoy the view of the river. It will not be paved. Maybe that's the best answer. It will not be paved.
Yeah, I guess that was my only, just thinking about what the landscaping might look like. It doesn't seem like to be a lot of green up front.
Yeah, this is gonna, I don't know, Jim, how big is this area? It's a pretty substantial area here.
It's about 9,000 square feet.
Okay.
Okay, so there'd be a lot of greenery towards the back of the building, and not too much towards the front.
Well, the front has some large islands as well. They're probably 2,000 square feet. There's your 11,000 because, like I said earlier, if you go to the existing conditions, I mean the entire site is paved.
Sure.
Yeah, right now everything is paved. So we're opening this whole area up here as green, and then we're adding green up here and green down here, and then everyone's getting a balcony.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking more from I agree, more green that's there now. I was thinking more about just from the resident perspective, with, so appealing.
Okay.
Like I said, so you have 2,000 up front and then 9,000 back. Green.
Okay. Well, to be determined and laid out in more detail, I guess, for now.
Yep.
So just getting back to the traffic study, and I'll go through these relatively quickly, Mr. Chairman, again at the 30,000 foot level. We work very closely with Mass DOT, as we just kind of talked about, as well as with Paul and the town to conduct the traffic study, so that we made sure we understood all the other projects that are taking place in the area. In particular, we know that there's the other 40B developments at the south of us. So we've incorporated all known projects, including that development, in our traffic study as well. The project at 60 units, we're predicting it's going to generate somewhere between 20 and 30 vehicle trips during the peak hour. It's one additional vehicle every 2 to 3 minutes. So, as you get away from the project site, the numbers get relatively small. So you're not going to really see an impact from the project. And I'll also mention that because this is not a greenfield site, as you heard Anthony mention at the beginning. I mean, the site is active. It does have tenants that are there. They're not as active as they were in the past, given the current pandemic. However, when you look at the amount of traffic that the project's going to generate in comparison to those uses when they're fully active, basically the site is going to generate somewhere comparable to the amount of traffic actually that's being generated today. It's a low traffic generator. So the project is, from a traffic standpoint, it's almost a replacement. It's just, from the standpoint of a residential use, it's not a large traffic generator. Traffic is more dispersed over the course of the day versus the commercial uses that operate within the site itself. Important things about 140, as you probably know, it accommodates about 25,000 vehicles per day, two-way traffic over 24 hours. So anyone that's tried to get in and out of a driveway along that corridor that doesn't have a traffic signal, you wait. There's delays for anyone trying to exit from those streets. So generally that translates into vehicle queuing. So you got to be patient and get out when there's a gap to get out onto the road itself. And our driveway is going to operate in a similar manner. But because we don't generate a lot of traffic, what it means is it may take you a little while to get out, but there's no residual queuing. So generally you're going to get up there, you're going to wait a minute or so to get out onto 140, but there's not going to be a backup of cars behind you. So that's important as we look at how the site's going to function in circulation and making sure that there aren't backups for people trying to get into the site primarily. If they've got to wait to get out, that's one thing. It's a whole nother thing if someone can't get into the site because the circulation doesn't work and they're stuck out on 140. That will be a problem. We don't have that situation here because it is a low traffic generator, and the way that you see the internal circulation working, there's not a possibility of a queue blocking the ability for vehicles to be able to get into the site. The last two items I've got in here in terms of the summary are safety related issues, and I know that's a primary focus of the board: design, internal circulation, but also safety. So the two safety related things that are evaluated in the traffic study, the first thing is motor vehicle crashes. If there's a history of crashes happening in the vicinity of the site, we need to understand why that's occurring and come up with a corrective measure. In this case, there is not a crash history here. I think over the past 5 years, if you look within 1,000 feet of the site, there was no more than 2 crashes, and they weren't related to the driveways to this property over a 5-year period. So that's not a significant number of crashes when you think about 2 crashes and 25,000 vehicles per day going by the site. So there wasn't a crash history. But we also looked at the Mass DOT high crash location database, and they look at 10 years worth of crash data along the roadway itself. And there's no high crash locations in the vicinity of the site either. So that was one safety data point we looked at. And then the second thing is sight lines at the driveway. So we need to make sure that we have sufficient sight lines, not for the posted speed limit, but for the speed that people are actually driving along 140. And as I know you're probably all familiar with this section of Route 140, it's relatively flat and level. So there's no sight distance impediments from where the driveway is. If you come out to the existing south driveway to the site, you look to the left or right, and you can see well in excess of 700 feet. So there's clear sight lines looking to the north and south of the site, as well as if you're just along 140 approaching the site. Again, it's relatively flat and level, so there's no impediments to sight lines, which gets to the recommendations of the traffic study. It's really, we're going to have nice landscaping. Jim had talked about those, or Lynn had talked about the snow windrows. So if you kind of go to the last set, Lynn, where the recommendations are. So you see in the last 2 bullet points here, the first bullet points in terms of our recommendations really deal with the access, and we talked about it, accommodating fire department vehicles exiting the site under stop control. Mass DOT will require that. All signs and markings within the site need to be consistent with standards. That's the manual and uniform traffic control devices. You saw in the site plan a sidewalk that gets you from the building out to Route 140. I would say at this time, The sidewalk, unfortunately, is on the other side of the street. We don't have a sidewalk along our side, so we are providing that ability to get out to 140, and it's primarily what Jim had mentioned is to have a place where any school children that may be in the site, they have a safe place to be able to get out to 140 and a safe place to stand so they're not in the roadway, so that a school bus can then come out and pick them up on 140. So that's the reason for that. And then those last two items I mentioned, really to make sure as we're designing the landscaping that nothing is placed within the site triangle areas, so we maintain that over 700 feet of sight line. And the snow windrows or snow piles, we want to make sure, and this presumably would be a condition of any approvals you might issue, that any snow piles that are placed within the site triangle areas, they need to be kept no higher than 2.5 feet in height, because you don't want snow piles there that would block sight lines. So that's our typical recommendation, is that you maintain those. If snow gets piled there, it needs to get removed or cut back so that it doesn't exceed 2.5 feet in height. The next slide then. So this is the last slide that I have on traffic. And one of the nice things about this location is GATRA does have a bus that runs along Route 140. It's the Wheaton Shuttle / Route 140 bus route. It will stop at this site. So we do have the opportunity of getting people to be able to use that mode of transportation.
How do we know that GATRA will stop? Have we asked? Or
They operate as a flag down or a passenger hailing mode. So all you need to do is stand out there and wave at the bus, and they will pull to the side and pick you up. The nice thing about Route 140 is it's nice and wide. It has wide shoulders. So the bus is able to pull over and a car can still get by them, so they can safely stop and do that. There are certain roads they will not do that if it's not safe. Route 140 does have the ability to be able to have the bus pull curbside and have a vehicle get around it. The other nice thing about Route 140 and it being so wide is it actually accommodates bicyclists, and this is one of the things that Serpent had noted. You can ride a bike on Route 140 and not have to have vehicles cross the center line to get around you. So what that really means to us is we can implement this transportation demand management program, which you see the list here, and what the goal of that is to let the residents know there is a bus service that does go by the site. It's available to you. We publish the schedules or post them within the community so people know, when the bus will go by and the ability to be able to use the bus. All things we want to do just really to reduce the amount of traffic the project will generate. And the last thing you see is about bicycle parking. Within the garage itself is a bike room, so you can physically store your bike within the site. You don't need to bring it up to your apartment if you don't want to. You can store it in the bike room. It's safe and secure. So we're trying to promote that as well as a part of the project, so that people have the ability to be able to ride bikes. So that's the 30,000 foot level of the traffic study, and I probably fully expect that you'll have a peer review done of the traffic studies, so someone will check the facts and findings and everything, and we would look forward to working with your consultant, whoever you happen to select, to answer any of the more detailed questions on the traffic study.
Mr. Dirk, thank you very much. It was a good summary. Sorry you had to rush it a little bit, but but I think it was an appropriate summary. A couple of things. As Ms. Sweet knows, we were here 1 week ago tonight on another 40B just south of here, and the members already did speak up and say, I think we need a traffic peer review, so thank you for anticipating that. Let me ask you something, maybe an unfair question. I don't mean it to be snarky. You've heard of the Xfinity Center, correct?
Yes.
Maybe I did mean it to be snarky, but I apologize. Better to apologize after you're snarky. So I guess what I'm bringing up is that section is almost stopped to a halt, and is stopped to a halt at certain points in any normal summer, this not being a normal summer because there aren't concerts there. I realize that affects, that's a negative for the residents there more than the town itself if you're adding just a few trips per hour at that point. But what do we do about that? I mean, do you know of anything in line to expand 140, to widen 140 along that stretch? Anything like that? Is there room for another lane there at this point? Will that ever happen?
So, I was or have been the traffic consultant for the Xfinity Center, Great Woods. So I've done a lot of the traffic work, and I'm very familiar with the traffic management plan that they have in place there. We had a discussion at some point. So really, their goal is to push as much of that traffic north as possible. It just makes the circulation within the parking areas just function so much better. There was at one time a discussion about looking at opportunities for putting in what's known as a contraflow lane. So, allowing for sort of like what they do at Gillette Stadium, where you can do some traffic management and run traffic in an opposite direction to do the outflow primarily, more so than the inflow. So there was some discussion about that. As Serpent looked at the Route 140 corridor, the idea of being able to accommodate full bike lanes on there with sidewalks along both sides would allow for some expansion. That expansion of the roadway would be such that you could do a contraflow lane operation. There's no desire, I think, on the state's part to expand that roadway so that it is designed to accommodate expanding traffic. The idea would be to allow for traffic management, but not fully stripe it so that it has additional travel lanes, because you create all of the issues that you're trying to avoid with impervious area and needing to deal with stormwater, and also increasing travel speeds that come along with a widened roadway. So the desire would be accommodate pedestrians, bicycles, and buses by sensibly expanding the roadway, and that width would allow for an additional travel lane to the extent that they wanted to implement a traffic management plan. So it's a flexible cross section. And so there is some discussion about that could be, at the time that they do any improvements, that's something that could be implemented for at least some section of the roadway itself. The way we typically deal with these situations where you've got residential projects close to, event centers is really, it's the residents that live here, to some extent informing them so that they know what's up the street, if they don't already when they move in here. But I think the other important part of this, and this could be something as a part of that traffic management plan, is to make sure the residents are aware of when an event is going to take place and the time of that event, so that then they can make decisions about their travel plans. And that we do find that's helpful. Again, if you go back to the Gillette Stadium situation, the residents know when there's a football game or when there's a concert. They know when it's going to start and stop. They know when the traffic management plan is going to be in place. So they plan their travel accordingly. And you will notice that if you travel on any of the roads other than Route 1 around the stadium, it's just the way that, people get used to it. And that would not be a bad idea to suggest that, that's something that's provided as a part of the information to the residents here, so that they know and they don't get caught off guard of when that traffic management plan is going to be in place.
Well, that's neat that you're the Xfinity traffic guy, so that's helpful to our trust here. And I guess this is, again, that's a concern for the potential residents of the development, more so than adding a couple cars, from the town's viewpoint. But it's something that we think about, what is this going to do? I could see, if I come home late at night by that way during concert, you could sit there for a few minutes.
Right.
And residents are going to be impacted, but will the town be impacted? I guess that's our primary concern. I don't know, other Jim or other board members have any, questions on that aspect at this point?
The only thing I would say is, with one comment I wrote down was the gotcha on the bus. I know just, what's that, south of there where the Cumberland Farms is?
Yes.
I've sat there going towards 495, someone trying to get in to get gas, and I've sat there for a while, or exiting that to get across, after getting gas, and I've sat there, I think, actually today, I sat it was a while before I could actually get out. So I know that stretch of area pretty well, and That's my only concern traffic-wise. There's some other stuff, but that's my initial comments.
Yeah, and I think the main thing is just really, as I was trying to mention, I mean, I always look at it from the standpoint of, even if I'm representing you, is to say if the delays happen in the site, well, you know, that's a site issue and a resident issue if they've got to wait to get out there, as long as they can get out safe and the sight lines are safe and everything like that. And then it's a matter of saying, okay, if they do wait and there's queuing within the site, does the site plan still work? Because if the site plan doesn't work and you can't get in, then it causes backups on 140, and then it's back to you where it's, okay, we've got a site that now people can't get into because there's queuing on the driveway. That backs up on 140, and then now it's a safety issue because they're backed up there. The nice thing with the way the site works is low traffic generator, and the way the circulation works, you can actually get around any vehicles that might be queued trying to exit.
I guess maybe my comment was a little not stated.
The left turns getting in?
No, if you're having a school bus stop out front.
Oh, right. Yes.
I mean, like, and what I meant is if someone's coming south going towards 495 and they go to make a left into Cumberland Farms and I'm behind them and they have to wait for a minute or two, it's back. I've seen it back up 5-6 cars. So you're not able to get around. I think I probably could, but you go off the road a little bit if I'm correct. I would be more inclined to say, you know, if you have a bus stop, safety-wise for everybody on that bus, to make sure there is adequate space for a car to go to the left and not to go so far left that it goes over the median, the yellow line to oncoming traffic. Any of that. That was more my comment and where my thinking was. Again, I'd have to take a look a little more when I drive by. Just going off the top of my head, I don't remember there being that much room.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, so yes, that's a good comment.
Okay. Did I hear that there is a covered bus stop there planned, or is it not covered, or?
We're not planning on a covered bus stop at this point in time. We don't want to do anything that's going to interfere with anything else visually at the front of the site, but we have designated a standing area for school-aged children.
Okay. Other questions from the board members? Not at this time?
No.
Okay. Mr. Dirk, thank you.
Thank you.
One observation, I know that we're in process of retaining a peer review on the traffic for the other 40B location, 195. I assume that it could be done, 2 in 1 in conjunction with the other peer review. This being a different site, but only, 1,000 feet up the road, maybe a little more than that. I don't know.
It makes more sense to the extent that you're able to do that, to have the same consultant review both projects, because of the fact that it's the same roadway, traffic being added to it. You would want to kind of make sure whoever's reviewing it, make sure that the cumulative impacts both projects, so that you can look at them individually, but at least you're understanding what are the cumulative impacts to the town's roads.
Mr. Dirk, did you look at the other submission from the other applicant?
We did as well. Our office prepared the traffic study for that as well, so I'm very familiar with it.
Okay, you've got a monopoly. That's good. I didn't remember your name. I'm sorry, from last week.
It was one of my colleagues that appeared for that project.
So I assume the numbers are somewhat consistent.
They should be exactly the same. If they aren't, I will be very embarrassed.
Okay, we'll look at that.
And are you guys taking a look at the project going down where the old soccer bubble used to be?
Yes, in Mansfield. So we included that project in it. In fact, when you do get to read the traffic study, you'll hate the COVID-19 adjustment discussion that's in there. But there's, as you get more traffic studies, you're going to be seeing more of this discussion about the Mass DOT COVID-19 adjustment policy.
Wow. So
there's a standard now that's in place because we are conducting traffic counts now, and so there has to be a process on making sure that everyone is following appropriate adjustment protocols. And so what you will see is, we have a discussion in this traffic study, is that we are using in fact, the traffic counts we're using in this traffic study are based on counts that were done for that project, because they counted 140 in 2018, I believe it was. So they've got a whole bunch of traffic counts, so that we're making sure we're using pre-COVID conditions and applying the Mass DOT adjustment policy to get representative of 2020 without COVID, essentially. And so the traffic numbers need to be reflective of that. And all traffic studies you see from now on need to talk about this adjustment and how they arrived at the numbers. So you'll see a discussion of that. But we use the traffic counts from that project to develop our traffic analysis at our driveways, and we included all of the traffic from that project in our assessment.
Just so we're on the same page, what is planned for the soccer bubble plot, Mr. Dirk, as far as you understand? So we're all on the same line here.
Sure. So it's a mixed-use development that's going to take place. And let me just get you the exact numbers. And again, our office prepared that traffic study, so the numbers that we're using are exactly what was prepared for that project. So let's read that for you. So the traffic numbers are based on a mixed-use development that is a 108-room hotel, 18,000 square feet of medical office space, and 25,000 square feet of commercial space.
Wow.
So it's a hotel, medical office, and commercial space. So it'll be a mix of retail, essentially, retail and restaurant in that commercial space.
But that's a significant delta.
It very much from the soccer facility, yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
One question. I think I brought this up last week. The board's probably going to want my head for this, but this is specifically for Jeff Dirk. The parking seems a little high ratio on here, and I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that. I'm always interested to see if there are opportunities to increase green space and perhaps places for kids to play, and when I see a parking ratio this high, it makes me wonder why.
So the parking ratio is 1.8 spaces per unit or per bedroom? Per unit.
Per unit on average. That just strikes me as high compared with other suburban projects I've seen, including those that do not have immediate access to a train station. So I just wondered, as a traffic consultant, Mr. Dirk, if you had any comments on that? Or am I putting you on the spot?
No, absolutely not. So the sweet spot is 1.5.
That's what I thought.
That's a typical number that you're going to hear in a suburban location. So, I start to get a little bit uncomfortable when we get below 1.5, although I've seen projects that are, when we do our demand studies, they go down as low as 1.4 and thereabouts. So, but any traffic engineer will tell you in the suburban location, if you could provide 1.5 spaces per unit, that's kind of the minimum that we feel comfortable with. 2 is absolutely too high, and so we're somewhere between 1.5 and 2 at 1.8. So to the extent that I think, as you're speaking about, Judy, that there's some nipping and tucking that takes place, the 1.5 is a sweet spot. So I think as you're thinking about things, that's where, if you're talking about reductions, I would advise the board as well as my client that if we get below that, it could be a problem.
Right.
So the question, I guess, Judy is asking is there opportunity to, I'm not saying this is the position of the board, but to eliminate a handful of spaces to increase office use, including
I think that we're certainly open to suggestions. Sometimes on projects, what we've done is we haven't paved everything. We've left it at grass, and if it turns out that we need them, we pave it. But this is really close to 495, so it is not within 128, kind of the metro area. It's not next to a train station. Unfortunately, there are no sidewalks on our side of the street, so there are on the other side of the street, but there's no means to cross over 140 to walk somewhere. So although we are, there is the bus, and we are providing bicycle storage, for the most part, our residents are going to be using motor vehicles. So we would say nothing is off the table at this point.
But kids won't necessarily be driving. And the question is whether there's an opportunity through adjustments to the site plan to perhaps replace some of that excess parking with play space. that's really what I'm driving at. Just a question.
Okay?
Okay, so you're not looking for more green space, you're looking for play space.
We're not, I don't think we're taking a position on it, we're just asking. How
That's
the
what the
numbers,
opportunity is, Lynn. Just trying to figure out what the opportunity is to perhaps have a better land use.
and then what number of spaces we'd be talking about. I mean, there's no opportunity, you have to have enough spaces, right? Because there's no opportunity for off-site parking here.
Right.
Well, let's see what our landscape architect is proposing for the back of the site as far as passive recreation space. And let's continue the discussion as to whether or not any of, when we get deeper into the process,
Okay,
what you're looking for.
fair enough. Noted as a question then.
That's a good question.
Members, any other questions on traffic at this point? And Paul can update us possibly on where we are with, locating that peer review on the other project. But this strikes me, obviously, this would be part and parcel with this project as well.
Yeah, we had sent in 3 names of peer reviewers just to kind of jump the gun because we feel that reviewing traffic early on often does shape the project a little bit more. So we would hope that might be the first review that you do, and given that we've got to do a little bit more tweaking on the stormwater management, and that there is a meeting already scheduled with the Concom in September, maybe that's something that can be done jointly perhaps. I don't really know what you're doing on the other project, but it's a thought that at least on stormwater management, if we are using the same peer reviewer, that might be a consideration as well.
Mr. Dirk, thank you. I thought that was very informative. I appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
If there are no other questions from members at this time of Mr. Dirk, we can move on to the next team member if there is one.
I am happy to report that we are done with our presentation. We thank you for your time, your patience. We appreciate all the questions that you're asking, and we're happy to answer any questions and talk about next steps when you're ready for that.
Jim, David, Alan?
Tom, this is Alan. I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Kind of all over the place. First one, AC condenser locations. Are they on the roof?
Mark? Let's see if Mark is still on.
Sorry, yep. Yeah, they will be on the roof, correct.
Is there a door that goes into the parking garage?
There's a vehicular door, an overhead door, yes.
An overhead door, correct, yeah.
Correct. Yep.
I guess another, just curiosity questions. Could somebody buy 2 units and combine them?
This is a rental project. So they're
Gotcha. So there's no way they could ever be combined? Well, there's no way, it'll be rental in perpetuity. It could never be condoed because of it being 40B.
No, that's not actually true. If it could at some point be converted to condos, that's not the intention. That's not Anthony's business. But I can definitively say that if somewhere down the road Anthony's family decided to sell, the project, that someone might not convert it to condominiums, but that is absolutely not the plan today.
I don't know how that would work under 40B anyway. Mr. Haverty?
Yeah, so the way that would work is if there was a desire to do that sometime in the future, it would require a request for modification to the board pursuant to 760 CMR 56.0511. And the board would have the ability to actually make a determination as to whether or not that requested modification was substantial or insubstantial. And the regulations make it very clear that a change from housing types, going from ownership to rental or rental to ownership, constitutes a substantial change. So in that instance, the board would have a lot of input into that process.
Okay, thank you.
I guess my only last question is there going to be a lot of construction in 140? I know there's existing utilities in place, but do they have to be updated, replaced, or what's any plans on that?
Anybody on the team know about hookups and what's required, what would be required?
Hi, this is Jim Burke. You got me again? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the existing water supply and fire protection for the building are actually fairly new. You know, in as far as capacity for the sewer, that continues to exist. I'd say the hurdle for any utility connection on Mass Highway is just, you know, contacting, coordinating with Mass DOT for that, for new connections and the like. But there's certainly plenty of supply, and utilities are certainly new enough for this type of use.
I think the question though was, well, what kind of interruption on 140 will it require?
Oh, you know, I'd say a couple days each for each utility, not a lot. They're on this side of the street. Sewer's in the center. Water is in the gutter on the east side. So not a lot of interruption.
And electric is going underground. I saw a transformer pad, I believe, in front of the building, so that'll be underground.
Yeah, then you'll probably bring an overhead feed with a utility pole and a riser, with an underground primary and then an underground secondary.
Thank you, sir.
Certainly.
Other questions from board members? What's next, Ms. Sweet? Well, actually, let me suggest something. You said that you are in front of conservation in 6 or 7 weeks. So what do you hope to accomplish in that time? You're submitting new plans or initial plans?
Thank you. The only thing that we are going to change is Jim is going to make 2 tweaks to the stormwater management plan. And one of them is to put, I think, a little bit of drainage in the parking lot, I believe. And one of the park. Jim, why don't you speak to the 2 changes you're going to make?
Sure. We're going to increase the recharge system in the back to accommodate the redevelopment requirement of 0.8 inches of stormwater storage and recharge. And then to actually meet that standard out front, we're going to have to put in additional recharge for there's a catch basin out front that takes up the remainder of the impervious area, and it actually flows to a drain pipe that cuts across the property, and we're going to be connecting to that existing system. So basically, the existing catch basin out front, we're going to add some recharge to it, bring that front system right up to current standards, and that's it. So there will be no waivers from local bylaw whatsoever.
But you expect to get beyond Concom eventually?
I expect to have that finished by the end of next week and resubmitted. The thing is that I'd like to take those plans, and conservation is going to need peer review on the civil site aspects of the design as well, and I'd like to get that completed and revised and submitted before it's sent out to peer review. So that's the reason for the urgency for me to complete it, and as you guys look to get a peer review engineer online.
Okay,
So
yeah,
can I just? Sorry. So the goal at this point in time, and I have communicated offline to the conservation agent Jennifer and to Paul, is that we will have revised stormwater plans by a week from Friday and the landscape plan a week from Friday. Jim and I will work together to send those, all the documents directly to the town's peer reviewer for stormwater management. And that peer reviewer will give a quote. We will deposit some money. and he will have his review done prior to the September 14th meeting. So that's what we hope to accomplish over the next 6 weeks on stormwater. We're hoping, because the traffic study is complete and the work that we're doing on stormwater has absolutely no impact on the traffic report, is that you will consider engaging a peer reviewer so that we could perhaps have a meeting in August that would be on traffic. But
yeah, I don't know what time is involved in engaging peer review and getting it to peer review. I don't know, that August is going to meet that, but we could try. So I know Paul is in process and having sent the first to peer review to a couple peer review firms. Paul, are you online and able to talk about whether we could add this to the existing requests for bids?
So what we would do, these are obviously two separate projects. So what we would need to do is solicit bids for both 40Bs, because they have to be paid separately for the work they've done for each project.
Yeah, I see.
But I would suggest, and we've already talked about this tonight, that traffic is one of the things that ties these two projects together. So we have put out, I've submitted requests for bids for two large engineering firms that have extensive amounts of peer review work. I'm going to get a third one out as well. And if you direct me tonight, I will then request those firms also provide bids for this project, and then take them back to you all.
I think that's the smart way to go. I'll ask for board member approval for that. But let me ask something. Do we know that Jennifer is already in process on the stormwater? Paul,
she is. She's confirmed that they have their a peer reviewer for stormwater
for this project.
Yes.
Okay, so is that ours as well? I assume that's ours as well. It's the same issues.
Well, right. That peer reviewer would be reporting and being under the management of Conservation Commission, but certainly you have an opportunity to coordinate with the Conservation Commission on issues related to stormwater.
Well, I've never been clear on the division, the line, demarcation between Conservation Commission and the Zoning Board on this. Lynn or Judy, can you help me out there?
So, in a community with a local wetlands bylaw, the Board of Appeals exercises jurisdiction over that. So if the applicant can't conform to a local wetlands bylaw, they have to request waivers, and those waivers are in your hands. The 131 Section 40, the state law, entirely resides with the Conservation Commission. So the applicant has to satisfy standards under 131 Section 40 with the Conservation Commission. That you don't have to worry about, but what you do have to worry about is the local regulations that would normally perhaps be in the hands of Concom, but in this case transferred to you. So it will be important to understand what local requirements the applicant believes that he can't meet.
And to that end, we do not have a local wetlands law.
Stormwater.
But we do have a local stormwater, but the applicant is requesting a waiver from that. Although I think one question I would have for the applicant is what specifically, because I hear that you're meeting the local bylaw and that there's a lot of overlap between the local bylaw and the state. Is there something specific that they would like to opt out of?
Well, they need to tell you what those opt-out requests are. It's not a blanket waiver.
Right. And
has that been done yet, Lynn?
We believe that the changes that we are making to the plan that Jim is going to be making over the next week our plans will comply with the stormwater management bylaw, and therefore will not be asking for a waiver.
But we need to confirm that as the zoning board, is that right?
That is correct. And if we're not asking for the waiver, the difference between the stormwater management system right now is 0.3 inches of recharge. So the town of Norton stormwater bylaw requires 0.8 inches of recharge, where the Mass DEP standards require a half inch. So what I'm going to be doing is increasing the stormwater to handle the 0.8 inches throughout the site and meet the local bylaw. So we won't be asking for a waiver from the local stormwater bylaw.
That's great.
We'll withdraw that. That just has come about in the last few days.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no need for us to have our own set of questions to a peer review on that aspect.
Not for the local bylaw, no.
Okay.
Which is great.
So I think it's in line for discussion, members. We need peer review on traffic. I anticipate Mr. Carmichael raised the issue, as did the town itself. We need peer review on the structural integrity of the the planned construction. I don't know if that should come now or later.
Chair?
Yes.
I recall Mr. Carmichael saying that could be done during the building permitting process.
That's correct, Paul.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
You also,
Yep.
with 195, you also did request engineering review, general engineering review, which we could do here. Correct us too.
Yes, site engineering review seems to be appropriate. Members, do you agree?
I agree as chairman.
I also agree.
So we'd ask the director to put bids out for traffic engineering peer review and site engineering peer review. Are those the correct terms to use, Judy?
Yeah.
And to enable Paul to get back to us with bids that can be communicated. I guess it's our decision. Judy's explained who to hire. Go ahead, Judy.
You can do it that way, or you can delegate responsibility for selecting the consultant to your staff. It's totally up to you. I've seen towns do this different ways. If you're trying to expedite it, or if you don't care or don't mind, Paul can just handle that for you. But if you prefer to have those bids come back to you so you can choose, that's entirely the board's call.
And just to add to that, that's typically what we do with planning board, who normally has peer review. I just go ahead and select the firm.
Yeah.
Members, are you okay with that procedure? David?
I think it makes perfect sense.
Alan?
Yes, Tom, I'm reading on the screen here. So are they suggesting that we have a joint meeting with Concom to do a stormwater peer review, if we're going to be also using, they've already hired a stormwater management peer reviewer. Do we do a joint meeting with them?
But is that even before us, those issues?
It appears that they're not.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that I'm rethinking that. If we're not asking for a waiver from you, then it doesn't make any sense. We'll just finish up, work with the Concom.
Concom will make their determination that you comply with the local stormwater bylaw.
Yeah. So my mistake, my apologies. The fact is, you're going to have a separate person doing civil and engineering. You're not going to be using the same person that they're using for stormwater management. I thought you'd be using the same person for the regular civil as is doing the stormwater, but I now recognize it's all separate.
Okay. Jim, are you set with Paul making the decision and proceeding?
Yeah, I think it would be perfect.
I'd ask Paul to proceed along that process, but to keep us informed on the steps along the way, when you send things out, and also when you get the bids in, I think we'd probably like to see them.
Sure.
To be able to review them, but we'd empower you to move forward as best you can.
I would agree, though. I think we should have the same traffic peer reviewer.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
that's out for bid on the first one too. I mean, we don't have any results there yet.
and for simplicity, I think even, for the engineering, just to manage a contract, it's easier to manage one company versus two. It's just simpler to manage it. And I think the firms are all, are excellent firms to do both types of projects.
Sure. So, Paul, I guess we're asking you to look into the firms with both of these projects in mind, although with different goals. And yes, we have to keep them separate, for the contracts. And then we request of each applicant the deposit of funds to cover the amounts that come back in the bids, and we can go forward from there. But they can't even start till we have that money in place, I understand. So what does that mean for timing here? What's the suggestion? What's our next meeting? It's August, is it 19?
It is.
Which is...
So what would happen on my end, I will, in fact, notify the people the companies I've already reached out to and just say, actually, just send them to me as soon as you can. We'll make a decision. I'll make a decision as staff till I get all the three in. But that shouldn't take too long. They'll draw up an estimate, a scope, then it's done in contract form. What I like to do too then is coordinate with an applicant just so they see it as well. And then once there's an agreement on that contract, then the applicant gives us a check which we then deposit and we're ready to go.
Right, so what realistically though can we get back in the next 3 weeks? That's all I'm asking. I don't think we're going to get any results back. I mean, any peer review back in the next 3 weeks.
That'll be part of the contract. I can't promise that at this point, but worked with firms that have been able to turn work around pretty quickly. But I'd like to keep that open-ended at this point. Oftentimes when you write these contracts, they oftentimes will write in there that a certain period of time that they have to review the work when they receive it. So sometimes it's, anywhere between 14 to 21 days. So.
Well, it's what, in my experience, it's taken at least a couple of months to get back, some results. That's all I'm bringing up. So
yeah,
we can schedule this again for the 19th. Lynn, do you anticipate having new material for us on the 19th? If so, then, we'll be happy to talk about it then. Otherwise, it's subject to whether we get anything back from peer review, which I doubt at this point.
So we will be submitting the landscape plan and revised stormwater management plan. And it really entirely up to you if you feel that warrants a meeting. We would appreciate having the hearing continued to the 19th. And then if traffic is done, great. If not, we'll continue it to, the next meeting and we can have a more substantive discussion. It's at your discretion.
So Paul, I think we have 15 Hawthorne, we have 195 Mansfield, and if we add it tonight, we have this 40B as well for the 19th. Is that correct?
You have
Yes.
157 Mansfield out too. And
Oh, right, we have 157 Mansfield.
You already got 3 things on the agenda for the 19th, one being a 40B.
Remind me what 157.
That's the mobile home park. That was
That's right.
an appeal.
Yeah, right.
And then the first time you hear that one.
It's going to be that would be a busy night then. Members, what do you feel of, when should we bring this back? On the 19th, should we try it, or should we wait till September, or do another meeting in between? I'm just throwing it open to you, Jim.
If it's just a landscaping plan review, I'm not sure how long that would take.
Jim?
Yeah, I mean, if it's just a landscape, I think we could probably fit it in, but I mean, Hawthorne Road could go
Yeah.
sideways there. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So,
I mean, if you don't mind, the landscape is probably more going to be reviewed when you do your complete civil and engineering review.
Right.
So I don't want you to feel that you have to squeeze us in for a separate meeting, but on the other hand, I'm not sure that I want to wait a full 2 months to get the traffic looked at, but.
Well, why don't we continue to the 19th, and
Yeah.
then we can make a change then. We have to continue it to a date certain, so why don't we
Exactly.
continue it to the 19th anyway? And we can spot ahead of time, how much of a burden we have and communicate with the applicant as to whether there's really anything to talk about that night. Is that?
Absolutely. If there's nothing to talk about, we will be happy to continue it to whenever your next meeting is and whenever we think there's going to be substance to it.
Right. Judy, does that make sense? Okay.
And I guess, again, we have to look at when the peer review middles come in. Obviously, we have a goal. We would like to have peer review done by the 19th, or actually before then, so you all get to see it. So that's going to be a factor in play here too.
That's 3 weeks from tonight. I'm just doubting, out in the open that it's going to get done for either project, but we'll see.
Yeah,
so-
if they.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if that might be a tough one, and we'll just have to decide if the peer review is not available on the 19th, what.
Just continue it again.
Yeah.
Right.
We
Okay.
don't have any problem pushing it out. We would rather, have everyone's time be used wisely. It's a brand new project to you. We're still making tweaks. It's not an issue.
So of the applicant, I ask, is there anything else we could do tonight to move this along? I think the presentation was good. It was complete and spawned some questions, good questions, and we have a roadmap. Is there anything else that we can accomplish, though?
I just don't know if there's anyone from the public that's still awake at this time, and if there is,
I'll
we'd be
ask
happy
that.
to address those questions.
Thank you. I will go to that now. Thank you for the suggestion. This is going to be continued to at least August 19th and meetings beyond that. But at this time, is there any member of the public in attendance by telephone or otherwise who wishes to add a comment to what they've heard so far, or ask a specific question that the applicant can either answer tonight or take a note and get an answer at the next meeting or the meeting after that? Is there anybody who would like to speak up? Either unmute yourself or turn your camera on and wave. I see Colleen. Yes.
It's actually Nancy Peach,
Thank you. What is your address?
257 Mansfield Avenue.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm the neighbor to the north. The 4 stories is not particularly exciting to me, but if this building goes in as proposed, it completely does away with any privacy on my property. They will be, many of the apartments will actually be able to see into my living room, which faces the lake at this point. And my house has a lot of glass because it was built that way because of the lake. Aside from that, I am assuming that the building facing my property looks pretty much, right now there's a front to this building and a backside to this building, but I am assuming that the apartment building will have the balconies and the windows, and there won't really be a backside. The north side will not be the backside, I guess is what I'm trying to say. What is now the fire lane.
Yes.
When this current building was built, we had a fence agreement. the type of fence that would be put in and how it would be maintained and so on and so forth. I need something, some kind of privacy. Remember, this land has been graded much higher. My land is the natural lay of the land. This property has been built, I think he said, what, 14 something, 14 feet. Anyway, it hovers over my property now. Is there any plan, what type of fencing, is there any fencing proposed? I'm assuming that for the north side that there is.
Okay.
That's kind of important to us.
We can ask.
It also brought up, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying we can ask the applicant to comment on that, but go ahead with your second concern or question.
They're talking about stormwater.
Yes.
And the drain or the catch basin that is in the front of the building actually goes into the brook on my land. I don't understand, are they changing it to the line or are they changing it to the brook, or what's the work that has to be done on that, or the alterations that has to be done on that at this point? How will that affect what is existing there?
This is Jim.
Go ahead, Mr. Burke.
So there's an existing catch basin in the gutter along 140 that flows directly and outfalls onto the swale on your property. We have a catch basin on our locus that connects to that. So our drainage is, for the current situation, the front parking lot drains into that swale on your property. What we're proposing to do is take that catch basin, close that gutter, and turn that catch basin into a drain manhole. That the flow on the street will flow to a catch basin that's further, actually in front of your property, that also drains to that swale. And what we're going to do with the on-site drainage is that we're going to relocate that catch basin, reduce the watershed, so the flow to your property in this area will be reduced by that alone. But in addition, with the revision to comply with the local stormwater bylaw, we will be putting in a recharge system that will further reduce the runoff to your property.
So we're actually talking a reduction, not an increase.
That is correct.
Okay. I wanted that clarified.
Yeah, that's part of the peer review that we can specifically ask about, although that may be before conservation now rather than us, but we can certainly ask for comment on that. Appreciate the comment.
I believe he clarified that pretty well for us.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And what about the fencing? What's planned on that side, or is that going to be part of the landscaping design that we're being told is coming relatively soon?
We're not prepared to answer that today, but we will definitely look at it, and we appreciate the question and the concern.
If I can give you a short background.
Yes, please.
When the building was proposed, it was proposed to put in a living hedge. Both of us agreed that maybe a fence would be better. They put in a fence, but they left a remaining quarter, they planted like a living hedge. That eventually began to die. So I backed up that dying living hedge with my own, which is still there. They eventually tore their hedge out. The problem being with the land so much higher, overlooking my property at a higher rate, with the concert goers were quite a problem. They could line up there, they did all kinds of nasty things into my yard, and so that's why the actual fence was better. In my estimation, I think I still would prefer a bigger fence, a longer fence, a better fence. We have people who have animals or had animals, so this isn't happening right now, but the people who live above Alberto's have dogs, and they walk them all the way over, and they go to the bathroom in my yard. This is the problem that we've had with this property and with the use of this property. I don't know if animals are going to be allowed here. You're talking about having more natural space, green space. Maybe that will solve the problem, but it's still a concern of mine. People kind of treat my property like I'm going to go in there and picnic, I'm going to walk my dogs there, I'm going to throw my rubbish there, I'm going to fish there, I'm going to walk along the waterfront there. And I've had people tell me I don't own it. I have people tell me that they have a right to do that.
Okay.
I hope you can appreciate we're at a disadvantage, and you're putting as many people, a few less people in this area now than we have in all those apartments down the street. It's a big concern.
Thank you.
Would you be comfortable
Appreciate you expressing those concerns so well. The board, I know, pledges to work with you so that hopefully we, the applicant, can address your concerns, and we will certainly do that. Just a question, before Ms. Sweet jumps in. About how far is your house from the property line, Ms. Peach?
I would have to guesstimate, I'd have to measure that. What would you say, 90 feet, 100 feet?
Well, we can look at that anyway on the satellite view or something like that. I'm just curious.
Remember, the brook dissects my land.
But your land goes back to the reservoir too, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you for that layout. We'll take a look at that. Ms. Sweet?
I have two suggestions, well, one request and one suggestion. Would you be comfortable if the developer knocked on your door to have a conversation about your concerns and to walk around the site? That's kind of one question. And then for the board, at some point, are you interested in doing a site walk? That's the second request.
I didn't get the last part of that.
Having the board do a site walk is usually traditional during these hearings. So at some point,
I would have no problem.
Extending an invitation to the board to come walk the site, and I'm asking your permission for the developer to come and have a conversation with you personally.
Sure. That would be fine.
That would be good.
That would be appreciated.
Okay.
That sometimes goes a long way to alleviating concerns. I appreciate the offer, Ms. Sweet, for the abutter, and the abutter has said yes, and the board, I think, would be interested in a site visit. That has to be by way of a planned meeting. We'd have to schedule something separate and apart, and also, I think, obtain some sort of insurance gobbledygook from the applicant, concerning liability while we're there. I don't know what that is, but I can. We're going to ask town council about that. I think we're set to do that in relation to the other project as well. Board members, are you interested?
The more I listen to these, I think the more I listen, the more I think it'd be a great idea to have a site visit for both plans.
Yeah.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Alan, you too?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Again, my understanding is, didn't it just come up last week? We have to schedule a meeting for it because we're all there, and there are rules about not asking substantive questions because we're not necessarily on the record. But the applicant can show us around. Let me just clarify with town council how we go about it.
I'm more than happy to have separate meetings if you folks want to break it up to make it easier.
Well, no, I think we should be there all at once. The board should be there all at once. But
I do recommend that you check with council, because every town council I work with has a different interpretation about the site visit is subject to the open meeting law, and if so, what the ground rules are. So rather than assert my opinion, I'm simply going to recommend that we follow up with council and get back to the board.
I will do that myself. Thank you. I appreciate that, Judy. But the board is expressing interest in doing it, so thank you to the applicant, and we'll try to get that going. And Ms. Peach, do I have your name right? Peach, P-E-A.
That's
I see it right in back of you on the
Just
wall.
like the fruit. Yes.
Yes.
You didn't answer. They didn't answer the question. Will there be animals? Will animals be allowed?
Yes, animals will be allowed.
Okay. Thank you.
But subject to, our conditions and controls as best we can work out with the applicant.
By animals, I mean like a pet, like a dog, a bird.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
No livestock.
Hope not.
Sometimes livestock are better than people, but I won't go there.
No, that's true.
So I
am an animal lover, so I won't go there.
Thank you for answering our questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for participating, and please stay with us as we go through this to tell us how things are going. And we can ask the applicant to do certain things. There are some things we can't ask the applicant to do, but the board wants to be sensitive to concerns of neighbors. So appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Understood. Thank you.
Is there anybody else? I think I saw another person, Ms. Spooner, Lee Spooner.
Yes.
What is is that your name, and what is your address?
Yes, I live across the street at 250 Mansfield Avenue.
And it's Lee Spooner?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead. What's your question or concern?
I just want to say, number one, I thought the presentation was very good. It gave a lot of information. I hope a lot of the neighbors were watching this, or at least downloaded the information to see what this proposal is. I have a lot of issues with the traffic. I don't know where the past traffic studies, what time those were done. I know Mr. Dirk said that he works with Xfinity. The traffic on Friday nights, especially if there's an event at Xfinity, is horrendous. It backs up 495 to get off at 140.
Yeah.
Anyone trying to take a left into this one driveway entrance of that facility, plus the parking that they have over at the Arts Center, going into Alberto's, I have difficulty trying to get around vehicles taking a left now into Alberto's so I can get into my driveway. When I put my directional on 140 to take the right into 250 Mansfield Avenue, people assume I'm pulling into Cumberland Farms. And I cannot tell you how many times there have been near misses. Those driveways for 250 Mansfield, for the Cumberland Farms, for Alberto's, and 253 Mansfield Avenue are all in a very, very small area. The exit for Alberto's is going to be right next to the driveway for this proposed unit. I don't know where you're going to be able to get buses, GATRA buses, to pull over on that stretch. It's going to be difficult. I know in the mornings we do have children from this address that do get school buses in the morning. The buses stop. There's not a whole lot of traffic, but it's a completely different story when there's an event at Xfinity. You're going to have the hotel, the retail complex up the street, the bigger Mansfield Arts Center, which will now have more events as well. I am very, very concerned about being able to pull out and take a left to head north on 140. I know that They did mention that there was no crash history, but I don't believe the traffic that is at 253 Mansfield now is going to be in any way comparable to the increase in traffic that will be there with this proposal. There's limited traffic at certain times over there, usually in the morning, but you're going to have people coming in and out from 60 units at all hours of the day and night, and I'm just very concerned about the issues. I don't feel that the Xfinity traffic situation is at all comparable to the traffic at Gillette. Gillette is not a residential area for the most part, in and out. I've heard conflicting things tonight, that this area is a residential area, and I've also heard it referred to as a commercial area. So, you know, I do live in a mixed use area. I understand that. But I just think that there really needs to be a lot of thought and consideration into the quality of life that's going to affect the neighbors in this immediate area with the traffic.
Okay. The board certainly.
There are no sidewalks on the opposite side. There is an area for lease, and there is no sidewalk between the few houses on the 250 Mansfield side to where the Dunkin' Donuts and the mobile station is. So there is a section where there is no sidewalk at all. I do walk up that way. So that I do have concerns about bikes and more pedestrians and things. But I appreciate the information tonight, and thank you for letting me voice my concerns.
Well, thank you for voicing it so well, and ask you to stay with us also as we go through these meetings to tell us, you know, whether any of your concerns are being met or addressed or not, because that's important to us on the board. We have the guidelines that we have to, you know, fall under in considering an application like this, as any application, but we certainly want to be sensitive to abutters such as yourself. Let me ask you something. I'm not familiar with the arrangements. Are there police stationed in the street beyond the immediate entrance to the Xfinity Center? In other words, are they in front of your house at all? Is there a position there, or is there a policy on that we know of, Ms. Spooner or Paul or anybody else?
We have a police officer that's usually posted here to keep people from the Xfinity Center from parking on private property.
Yeah, well, I mean, who hires that officer? Did they just show up? Is that the town that just provides?
No, I believe the association hires the officer. They don't direct traffic. They don't cross people from Alberto's to walk across the street to the Xfinity Center. They are posted only in 250 Mansfield Avenue.
What association are you referring to?
It's the Norton Estates.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious, does nobody else knows about the police arrangements there? Whether something's required or...
The only other police that I see are up doing more of the traffic control when you come off of 495 and take the right onto 140.
Right.
And then, of course, the officers that are there directing the traffic to the parking lots on both sides. And the traffic does back up depending on what the event is over at Xfinity, where sometimes even coming from the center of Norton by Wheaton, the traffic is backed up to the center. Just
I know that.
Yeah, so it can be difficult, and even trying to plan ahead when I know on a night when I'm coming from Rhode Island from work and I know that there's something there, I know not to take 95 and 495 because I can't get home. So I end up coming up through 123 in Attleboro and taking my chances coming up by Wheaton and taking 140. There's usually a little less traffic that way.
And sometimes you can't get home. I know.
As much as I might want to, yes.
we all know the frustration. Of course, our concern is going to be the level of increase in traffic from this project to the area. That's what we're permitted to address. And you heard Mr. Dirks tonight say it's going to be minimal. Of course, the numbers are meaningful, but that's the scope of our jurisdiction to look at this.
And also, it's the placement of that driveway for that unit. It's going to be right next to, or extremely close to, the exit for Alberto's, which luckily, local business, now with some of the restrictions eased, there's been more people going to Alberto's and frequenting that. You're going to see that more on the Friday and Saturday nights. It's somewhat manageable because the Xfinity is not having events right now, but I do have some concerns about that driveway, people coming out of Alberto's trying to take a right, people exiting the 253 Mansfield trying to take a left, people trying to get in and out of the Cumberland Farms. It's really a kind of a very tricky situation where all of the driveways are located.
Understood. Now, of course, there's a driveway there, but it's a business. It's businesses located there, so I guess the hours shift a little bit. But again, appreciate your comments, and we'll take it. Take it to heart. Take it into consideration as we're talking about this over the next.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But we have criteria that we have to fall under in considering. Whether to permit this or not, and it'll be the increase in traffic that we have to look at, and that's why we are getting our own outside opinion on traffic to sort of check stop what the applicant has provided. So thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who has any questions or concerns from the public tonight, or board members? Did you want to address either a butter?
No, I just wanted to, you raised the point about police officers there. I'm no expert, but I've driven that section multiple times. I believe they do now put cones in the center going all the way almost past Cumberland Farms, which prevents traffic going across 140, left, right. It's like, if you're on Alberta side, you're going north. If you're on Cumberland Farms, I think you're going south. Again, no expert, and I might be wrong, but I remember seeing the cones.
I'll ask the chief about the details at Xfinity and down in this location.
That'd be great. That'd be great, Paul. I think that'd be helpful. And part of our process is to ask the town departments for their specific comments on a project. We're going to do that as well. And certainly, the police department on this and the other will be quite informative to us. So thank you.
Yeah, and along those lines, Chair, I want to point out that I think we would have had more town staff tonight, but because of the other meeting, a lot of them were directed to the discussion tonight on the new town hall and senior center.
Yeah.
In fact, the town manager would have been on tonight, but
the town manager,
that was the priority.
They scheduled another meeting tonight on citing some town facilities, including new town hall, which is badly needed. So we'll get the departments involved going forward. And to the abutters, thank you for voicing the concerns, and we'll try to alleviate your concerns. Is there any? Go ahead, Ms.
Mr.
Sweet.
Chairman, at the beginning of the meeting, somebody wanted to know if the application materials are available to the public, and does have an electronic copy of everything that we submitted. Hopefully, that is. I don't know if you've gotten the information online or not, but
we have, the board members have, because we're invited to a Dropbox that Paul and Nicole maintain for us. I was simply asking if a member of the public just tuning into this wants to see the same materials. Paul, do they have access to the Dropbox, or do they have to request access? Or what we did, I know, a couple of years ago, and I don't want to impose this right now, but we asked the applicant to set up an FTP site where they could just post their stuff and anybody could go to it. But Paul, what's the status now with it? Somebody who wants...
Our technology is boosted light years from then. We actually, if you go, so in fact, I had sent information digitally to Ms. Peach. If anyone wants to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals website, you'll see a link that says remote participation. If you click on that, you can easily find the link to the application and some other information right from there.
Okay, great. That answers.
We will continuously update that so people can easily find the material for upcoming meetings. So that will eventually include the peer review, updated plans, all of it.
Great. I did not know that. I haven't spent enough time, I guess, on the town website.
Well, Nicole did some revamping to it, but we make that. We've made any application you have now is now available. The material you see tonight is available to the public.
Great. I'm glad to know that. Thank you. Very good. Nicole is here in voice, but not in pictures. She refuses, even if we supply her with a camera.
As always.
It's my role to give Nicole a hard time. I apologize.
It wouldn't be a meeting.
That's my role.
True. Okay, is there anything else to discuss tonight in regard to this project? Judy, are we on course here?
I think you're doing just fine. I actually think you run a great meeting. I was sitting here thinking about how smoothly this goes relative to some others I've seen. So kudos to you and your colleagues.
It feels like the boat's rocking to me, but maybe it's just me at this point.
No, I think you're doing just fine.
Okay, thanks. With that then, is there a motion to continue this? I don't think we need a vote. We've directed Paul to do the peer review search. And let's put this on for, is there a vote to continue this to our scheduled meeting of August 19, say at 7:05 p.m., just because we had already scheduled at least one thing for 7 o'clock?
I think you have to do this as a roll call.
Yes, first I need a motion.
Oh, sorry, that's true.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to continue this meeting of Reservoir Apartments at 253 Mansfield Avenue to this 19th at 7:10?
7:20.
Oh.
What's that?
You already got something scheduled at 7:10.
Oh, sorry, 7:15.
15.
Okay.
I revised my motion to 7:15.
Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? No? Good. All those in favor, Mr. Wren, how do you vote to continue this August 19 at 7:15 p.m.?
I vote yes.
Mr. Tenore, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Mr. Boulay, you are in agreement, correct?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, great. The meeting is continued, the hearing is continued to August 19 at 7:15. If there is a reason beforehand to say that, there's not going to be a lot of further discussion, we'll notify people as best we can. Keep an eye on the agendas. Otherwise, we'll see what we can get done before then and do it. There's a lot of material in the application already submitted anyway, including the traffic study. So let's continue on. Thank you all very much for participating.
Thank you.
Chairman, appreciate it.
Thank you for the introductions to the team as well. I look forward to working with you. Zoning Board, we have a couple of business items to attend to. We'll say goodnight to other people who want to leave at this point and continue on. Okay, under general business, release of remaining peer review funds for 274 East Main Street. Paul, I was just confused because we voted on this some time ago this winter.
That was for surety. That was the release of the surety bond from
Sorry. Gotcha.
And this was going to happen, this was going to come before you in probably March, and then COVID happened. But after you released the surety,
yes.
As you know, recall from that, you had a final inspection from the peer reviewer.
Yep.
So essentially, that's all closed out. and we just want to release the remaining balance back to Campanelli.
And what is that? Do we know?
It's roughly about $240 was remaining.
We can't just split that up?
Split it up?
Among us?
Oh, no. Nope. We just want to get the full amount back to the applicant.
We could run up a tab at Alberto's for that pretty quickly, but okay, all right. I guess we'll do the right thing.
Yeah, and I'm just asking to release the remaining funds. That way, we don't have to put a specific dollar amount. This is what we frequently do with the planning board as well. This language, actually, that was the treasurer who just said, we're closing it out. Just tell her to release the remaining balance.
And sorry, I didn't see the distinction. I remembered voting on the whatever it was, the escrow monies, but not the peer review funds.
Right. And in fact, you authorized payment of the last peer review bill, and this is what's left over.
Thank you. So is there a motion on 274 East Main Street project to release the remaining peer review funds to the applicant, to the awarded party, Campanelli, in an amount to be determined by the town treasurer's office, I believe would be the right way to do it. Is there such a motion?
I'll make that motion. I don't think I can repeat it all.
Jim, is there a second?
I will second, Mr. Chairman.
Barring any further discussion, Mr. Wren, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Tenori, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. Paul, thank you.
Thank you.
Will you take care of that, or I don't know if she needs a written vote decision. I can do that quickly.
No, she just needs a letter from me. So okay. You have it in the Dropbox, but I just signed it.
Okay, you had it ready to go.
I had it ready, but no signature until you voted.
All right. Next item is just minutes. If we could just take a couple minutes, we can get through. Pardon the pun. We can get through 2 minutes in the next couple of minutes. I emailed today separately from the Dropbox. First of all, minutes of the meeting of May 27. Did you have an opportunity to get those and review those? These were, I think, all continuances that night because we were still in that state of not knowing, when we were going to take these up. If there's any comment, if not, is there a motion to approve the minutes for May 27, 2020?
Yeah, I had no comments. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 22nd?
27?
27th, yes.
2020?
Yes.
I will second.
Okay, Mr. Tenori seconds the motion. No further comments on these as edited? Okay, Mr. Wren, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mr. Tenori?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So May 27 is done. I'll get those to you, Paul. Next is we're skipping over June for right now. Nicole had done those, and I looked at them, and I just asked her to fill in a couple of things. So she'll hopefully be able to do that in the next, couple of weeks. We'll get those. But
absolutely will.
Thank you. And we did the July 8 meeting, which was the training session last time. But I also separately emailed the minutes from July 22 as edited. If you've had a chance to review those, now's the time to make changes or ask questions.
Tom, also, I'm looking at those, and you might want to wait because I think I left one little section, unless you guys are okay approving it, where I needed to pull notes from Paul because my computer, I had to shut it down. Yep. So I think I accidentally left that in there, and unless you guys want to approve it, whatever way you want to, I just want to know you guys to know that's still there. I hadn't got notes from Paul yet.
I saw that, and I left your note. It says get notes from Paul, and I yellow highlighted it. I tried to fill in from the decision itself, I guess, and from my memory, this is 15 Hawthorne. I tried to fill it in according to my notes and what I remember. I didn't know if you wanted to do more searching of Paul's notes.
Whatever.
So I just left it in there for that. But members, if you want to read it over, if you haven't already, and we could.
Tom, I took a look at it and I thought it was pretty good. I just didn't understand what get notes from Paul meant. That was.
My computer shut down. I'm sorry.
And I just left that notation in there.
I mean, quite frankly, I'm okay with it. I don't think it is a problem if we leave it in there.
Oh no, well, I mean, I'll scratch out the get notes from Paul reference. I think I filled in what I think Nicole didn't have in front of her. That's what I'm saying. So, if the minutes are okay as is, a motion to approve them. Otherwise, we can discuss them. Paul has been destroyed.
I'm fine. I'm using a picture frame to hold up my thing here.
I bought a clamp on Amazon just to clamp my camera. So the camera wouldn't be over here somewhere, looking at. I know the problems of remote participation.
But now I know this can easily flip to landscaping mode.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, you want a Surface Pro?
Yeah. It's actually it's a good tool.
That's what I use now for all my Zoom. It's awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I use when I'm in the car driving.
Okay.
The camera's good. Jim, are you on it now?
Yeah.
The camera's good.
How do I look?
No comment.
I didn't say you look good. I said the camera's good.
Which side? This side?
Neither side. Neither.
Hide video button.
What's that?
Needs a hide video button or turn video off button.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. What? Yeah, isn't that better right there?
There you go.
Nicole can't find her video button, apparently.
She needs a new laptop with a new camera.
You'll never know what I look like at this hour.
So any comments to these minutes for July 22?
I think they look good.
Is there a motion?
Sure.
I'll make a motion to accept the zoning board of appeals minutes of meeting held on July 22nd, 2020.
With the get notes from Paul edited out. Is there a second?
I will second.
No further discussion. Sorry, Mr. Wren, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Tenori?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. It's kind of silly. After one guy makes the motion, another guy seconds the motion to ask that, but we've accomplished our roll call vote duties. Okay, so I'll just edit these two sets of minutes and scan them to you tomorrow, Nicole and Paul, and we'll hopefully get the June meeting minutes out of the way and ready to go for the next meeting on August 19th. Is there anything else, Paul, right now?
No, that's all.
We got through a lot. It took longer than I thought it would take, but we got through a lot.
Yeah. No, you
was going to say that even if we're in person, I don't think there's a room that we could have been in and had 27 people tonight. Might actually work out better.
Did we have 27?
I saw 27 at one point.
Yeah.
26. I'm not sure that would have been possible in person.
And our communications director is saying that the numbers, so we can track now, are certainly much higher than the in-person attendance.
Isn't that interesting that this has kind of opened it up to people?
Well, it's my speculation is it's probably people who would have been watching it on Channel 15, but at least now they have an easier. First of all, they have a Zoom link, and secondly, they have the ability now to speak to you. Whereas if they're just watching it on Channel 15, they can't. So while we have some glitches, there are a lot of benefits to it.
Yep. You know, if we could be in this, sorry, Nicole, go ahead.
Yeah, one last thing. I don't think I put it in Dropbox. So I apologize, but Paul, that reimbursement is through ZBA, correct?
Oh, right. I had to go to the post office to drop off one of the hard copies for Judy.
It was $9.20, I believe. So either I can throw it in and you can do it next meeting, or if you're okay allowing the reimbursement, it's up to you guys.
Oh, I think, yeah, sorry. I think we need to see the,
Okay.
we need to have paper on it. That's what council had always said before.
That's fine. I'll scan it in. I'll scan in his receipt and get it to you guys. I apologize. I totally forgot about that.
You're fine.
If Paul needs lunch money, we can all chip it in. Paul doesn't look like
anything I can get.
We should sell commercial space on this and, you know, maybe make a few bucks. I don't know. I'm tired. I apologize for my lack of sense of humor. Everybody, thanks for being part of the team. Nicole and Paul and you know, all of you. Thank you.
This was great. This was a good, productive meeting.
It was.
And last week was too. So
yeah, we'll get through these.
You guys are in great shape.
You know, it'd be easier if we were in the same room, like in the media center. That would be easier because we could communicate among ourselves easier. I'm not suggesting we do that, and I guess the town still doesn't want us to do that anyway. But, you know, then the remote thing would be best of both worlds. But in any event, keep posting the stuff, Paul.
Yeah.
And, notify us when you make changes to the postings, you know, that there's something new there, Paul, Nicole. But otherwise, let's go on. And we got 3 weeks off now. Don't get in trouble.
We got a lot. I'll do my best to, you know, to get the peer reviewers in, but it's going to be tight to get their, you know.
What I was saying is usually it would take a couple of months to get a peer review in place and results. So I was kind of surprised that anybody was thinking 3 or 4 weeks would work.
Well, I think that the challenge right now is they're not even under contract. So
right.
Once they're under contract, again, usually the most I've seen is 21 days for a turnaround in the contract.
I don't know if this is a good idea or not. I know we did it before, but when you get a contract, just to run it by Amy to see if it has the buttons pushed. I don't know if do you do that in planning or do you just go with it?
No, typically I just handle it.
Okay.
I just handle it myself. So
that's fine. I'd like to see it. You know, you could post it to us and we can look at it if we have any questions.
Okay.
Is there anything else to come before us tonight? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Normal second.
Roll call vote. Mr. Wren?
Yes. Please.
Mr. Tenori, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Booley, I'll ask for laughs. How do you vote?
I'll think about it.
Mr. Booley reserves his vote. I vote yes. 3 to 1.
3 to 1, you lose.
Good night.
Thanks.
All right, bye.
Good job.
All right. Have a great evening.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of them.